Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This is a magnificent Shabbat Shalom because Benjy becomes a bar mitzvah with a beautiful family, and I've been privileged to know your family for many years. And what a joy for me personally to be able to extend congratulations and to say how exciting it is, Benjy, to participate in this magnificent occasion. I had the honor of officiating at Tanya and Billy's wedding, and that was a time of great joy. Can I call you Billy? Or should I call you William? Billy's great. And we have the records here. You were marriage license 062561. Tanya Ann Shapiro Bar, William David Orkin, Elka Sima, and Chaim Ze'ev. On July the 29th, 2006, here at Congregation Shalom. And Charles and Robin and Sheldon and Susan, they were expressed here with great joy. And it was a wonderful day, and now look what has happened all these years later. For this day, for Benjy to celebrate this day in his life. Benjy Orkin. And it means a great deal. The Torah portion for this week, you'll see later, is so meaningful and significant. And Benjy, your name really means my right hand son, the son of my right hand. And Benjy, the Benjamin is my right hand. And typically, unless you were a left-hander, it was the strength of your right hand to be able to do what you can do to make your parents and your grandparents and your whole family and you yourself with a wonderful soul to go about life in a magnificent manner. And it's always been that way in your family, and how meaningful it's been to know your family for all of these years. And we are so proud of you as we celebrate this day. So I just wanted to announce the beginning of the service, and we begin our tradition. Page 74, Ma Tovu.
Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Va'ani berov chasdecha avo veitecha eshtachave el heichal kodshecha be'yiratecha. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Adonai ahavti me'on beitecha umekom mishkan kevodecha. Va'ani eshtachave ve'echra evrecha lifnei Adonai osi. Ma tovu משכנותיך ישראל ואני תפילתי לך אדוני את רצון אלוהים ברוב חסדך ענני באמת אישך מה טובו אוהליך יעקב אוהליך יעקב משכנותיך ישראל מה טובו אוהליך יעקב אוהליך יעקב משכנותיך
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Moments ago, an ancient and beautiful tradition took place where Benjy had the talit of tradition, the beautiful prayer shawl that he's wearing, placed on his shoulders by his dear grandparents, by Charles and Robin. And it is significant that this talit was what Charles wore for his, when he became Bar Mitzvah. It's an indicator that the fabric of all of your lives are interwoven together. And it is meaningful, and that it's a reminder of the values that have been so lovingly passed from generation to generation, carried on the shoulders of your ancestors, Benjy, right up to this moment where you now have them placed on yours. And in our Siddur, in our prayer book, on page 88, in the blue prayer book that you might have in front of you, there's a text that reminds us that when we fulfill certain obligations and take on new adult responsibilities, there is not only a reward in that it brings sustenance and goodness to others, but there's an intrinsic goodness to them that is in itself rewarding. And so it's a meaningful tradition for Benjy to step forward and read and lead us in these obligations without measure, whose reward, too, is without measure.
These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all,
because it leads to them all. We are now going to turn in our Siddur, our prayer book, to page 106 as we join together in the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה
Amen.
לעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכו בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעלם לעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן.
We now rise as one community as we turn to the call to worship.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
continue on in the Hebrew on page 110.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha berachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh bechol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam bechokma asita, mala ha'aretz kinyanecha. Tit barach Adonai Eloheinu, al shivach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita, yifarucha selah. Or chadash al tzion ta'ir, v'nizkeh chulanu mehera le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer hame'orot.
Amen. I particularly love how you emphasize Ma Rabu Ma'asecha Adonai, how numerous are your works, Adonai, and certainly on a morning such as this, we can feel that sense of wonder at all that God created. And Benjy, when you look out into the congregation and you pause for a moment, sometimes in moments like these we don't pause, but when you look into the eyes of your friends and your family and people who so love you and are so proud of you, you can see that love reflected in their eyes and the pride that they feel. That's how we experience God's love in this world, is through the people that we care deeply for. And so it is meaningful that you will now turn to page 112 and read the English translation of Ahava Rabbah, a prayer that reminds us of all of the love that God holds for each and every one of us.
How deeply you have loved us, Adonai, our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion. On account of our forebears, whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life, be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, have mercy on us by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, to perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah. Enlighten our eyes with your Torah. Focus our minds on your mitzvot. Unite our hearts in love and reverence for your name. Then we will never feel shame, never deserve rebuke, and never stumble. Having trusted in your great and awesome holiness, we shall celebrate your salvation with joy.
We read together, Gather us in peace from the four corners of the earth,
and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us. Truly you drew us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Praise be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel in love. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
We join together now in the watchword of our faith, the Shema, on page 114.
Shema Yisrael,
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed.
Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever.
You may be seated. We continue now with Ve'ahavta on page 116.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובשומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai, your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet.
We continue now reading responsively on page 121.
The eternal truth is that you alone are God and there's none else.
May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exalt in your justice.
Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war any more.
You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart.
The stranger that sojourns with you shall not be accepted as your equal, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt.
Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor? Asked God.
We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy.
Praise to God Most High.
Blessed is God and deserving of blessing.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדחנו ממך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
We now rise as we turn to the tefillah, which can be found on page 124.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'Konei Hakol, Ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot ve'Imahot, Umevi Geula lihivnei v'neihem, Lema'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Chozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah rav lehoshia, Morid hatal, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
We continue now reading responsively on page 129.
You are the open door that beckons me in. Peeking around the doorframe, I begin to enter your glory.
You move me forward, O Eternal, to step beyond self-made boundaries. Lift my foot over the threshold that I might abide with you.
In the house of the Eternal, I found my questions, waiting to be posed. They filled me with wonder.
Sit with me, eternal teacher, encourage my seeking. As I fill my hours with your mitzvot, so shall I be filled.
Send me through your door, stretching up to honor your name, sharing out this wonder, enriching myself in the giving. Baruch atah Adonai, notea b'tochenu chayei olam.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם. אלוהייך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
You may be seated. We continue on page 132. 132, those who keep Shabbat by calling it a delight will rejoice in your realm. The people that hallow Shabbat will delight in your goodness. For being pleased with the seventh day, you hallowed it as the most precious of days, drawing our attention to the work of creation.
ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. מקדשי שביעי שבת, כולם ישבעו ויתענגו מטובך שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ובשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת. חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה וראשית שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת.
We continue now reading responsively on page 135. We offer thanks, O God, for this Shabbat, which unites us in faith and hope, for Shabbat holiness, which inspires sacred living, for Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness, for Shabbat peace born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing, O God. Baruch atah Adonai, Mikadesh HaShabbat. We continue on page 136.
רצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך ישראל ותפילתם באהבה תקבל ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך. ברוך אתה אדוני שאותך לבדך ביראה נעבוד.
On page 139, we find the Hoda'ah prayer. It's a prayer of thanksgiving that reminds us to be grateful for all of the blessings that come our way. On a morning such as this, we may feel grateful for the waning days of summer, as this beautiful warmth that surrounds us outside. But also we may feel grateful for the gift of the warmth that comes within this sanctuary as family and friends and community gather together to celebrate. You may feel grateful for a young man who's taking his place as an adult within the Jewish community. If you have reason to feel grateful this morning, I invite you to say the Hebrew words, Modim Anachnu Lach, after each of these English readings. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations, Modim Anachnu Lach. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons, Modim Anachnu Lach. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements, Modim Anachnu Lach. For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression, Modim Anachnu Lach. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared, Modim Anachnu Lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom, Modim Anachnu Lach. For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose, Modim Anachnu Lach. We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulcha na'eh lehodot. Page 140.
Sim shalom, tova uvracha, chen v'chesed, ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברכנו יוצרנו, ברכנו יוצרנו, כולנו כאחד כאחד, באור באור פניך. כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו תורות חיים ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
With these beautiful words of peace still echoing in our hearts and minds, we take time now for Tefillat Halev, for the prayers of the innermost recesses of our hearts.
We sing together. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. 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 Yaseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Well, we come to the part of the service where we're able to, in a few moments, take from the Ark, the Torah scroll, and escort it throughout the congregation, because it is the very message of how to live life in accordance with dignity, with a sense of spirituality. Our coming together today is a source of spirituality, and how we're all connected in so many ways. I'm a Shapiro. You have Shapiros in your family. You have a Judy Shapiro in your family. I have a Judy Shapiro in my family. My wife is Judy Shapiro. I know that there's a Dan Shapiro. I have a son, Dan Shapiro. And it just means that somehow and in some way, all of us can find connections to one another. And the Torah enables us to have that one unifying power, that this gift of spirituality was placed upon the shoulders of all people who want to see goodness persevere. If we continue a little bit with regards to how we are connected to one another, the name Shapiro is a name that is derived from the 1200s, actually. Jews had to flee from one country to another. And in the 13th century, in the 1200s, Jews fled to Germany, to 3 towns. Rashi, who was a great commentator, who had a lot to do with writing Torah and commenting on Torah, lived in Worms, Mainz, and Speyer, Germany. Many of the people who had left the Middle East and went to Germany found a place of study and learning. Anti-Semitism evolved by the 12th century, and Jews who lived in Speyer, Germany, were forced to leave. So too in Worms and Mainz. The Jews of Speyer went northeast to Russia. For in the 1700s and before, going to 1200s before, Jews fled to Russia, and many of our relatives who are Ashkenazi Jews found safe haven there. But by the 1700s, anti-Semitism emerges again. And Jews begin to, in the late 1700s, early 1800s, and late 1800s, come to the United States in huge numbers as safe haven in a new land. Now that's all interesting because Speyer evolves from Shapiro. And the name Orkin, if we were to play with that name, O in Hebrew means otherwise or again, and kin in Yiddish, meine kin, you know what that means? That you, Benjy, are your parents, grandparents' kin. They're kinder, they're little ones whom they love. All of this emerges with the concept of love, which we just said, and it's in the Torah, Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, you shall love the Lord your God, your family, your relatives, your community of all religions and faiths. This becomes a hallmark of Jewish study, that is read in the Torah. And we're going to be taking the Torah out of the scroll now, out of the ark. We'll be taking that out and opening the ark, and it commemorates something powerful. Once again, going back to tragedy, but with hope nonetheless. This Torah that Benjy will be carrying and reading from it is a Torah scroll which is hundreds of years old. It emerges from Germany. It was a small town in Poland. After Germany, it was brought to Poland because Poland was a place where people could live. And there was a little village that was very proud of this particular Torah scroll. When the Nazis came to power, the Torah scrolls were destroyed in huge numbers. There was an elderly Jewish man who lived in that little village who wanted to protect all that was important spiritually. And so he went into the synagogue and he took the Torah scroll and he hid it away in a place where he felt it would be protected. And lo and behold, most of the Torah scrolls were decimated by the Nazis. But this man, this elderly man, survived. And at the end of the war, he went in search for the Torah scroll, found it exactly where he had placed it, in good keeping. And it was brought back to the synagogue so that this very small community that was left after World War II could open a Torah and read it and have hope for the beauty of life. You know, when we touch the Torah, and this is the last statement I'll make about it, when we touch the Torah and touch the handles, it's not unlike all the people who have held those handles for so many centuries, hoping and praying that life could be better. When we see one another and we grasp each other's hand and shake hands, it's not any different than grasping the Torah scroll to say, I will befriend you, but I know that in spiritual literature it says in the Torah to be decent and caring and respectful of your fellow human being. It's like that's what it means to take a person's hand. And that's what we're about to do as we now turn in our Torah portion, as we rise as a congregation, and as we proceed to the Ark.
We turn now in our Siddur to page 244. It is a great joy to call forward all of Benjy's dear grandparents, to call forward Robin Shapiro and Charles Barr and Shell Orkin to ascend to the bima, as well as Benjy's dear parents, Tanya and Billy, to come to the middle of the bima. And it's a joy also to call upon Jesse and Ellie to step forward as they have the honor of opening up our Ark doors. And so we turn now to page 244 for Seder Kriyat Torah for our Torah service.
Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha bechol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed Adonai oz le'amo yitein Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah Udevar Adonai mirushalayim Baruch shenatan Torah Torah Baruch shenatan Torah Torah le'amo Yisrael bikedushato.
Benjy, this is the Torah, as you well know, and now we have the privilege and excitement of passing the Torah from generation to you. And your grandparents and your parents love you so much. And so too, they are proud of the wonderful work that you have done to learn and to study. And so we're going to pass this Torah for generations, and may you continue to pass it on in years to come.
We turn and face the congregation as we recite the watchword of our faith, the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel.
Adonai is our God, Adonai is one.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlul Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedula, v'hagevura, v'hatiferet, והנצח והחוד כי כל בשמיים ובארץ כי כל בשמיים ובארץ לך אדוני הממלכה והמתנשא לכל ראש Hevenu shalom alechem, Hevenu shalom alechem, Hevenu shalom alechem, Hevenu shalom, shalom, shalom alechem, Hevenu shalom alechem, Hevenu shalom alechem, Hevenu shalom alechem, Hevenu shalom, shalom, shalom alechem. Hevenu shalom alechem, alechem hevenu shalom, hevenu shalom alechem, alechem hevenu shalom. Hine ma tovu anayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu anayim shevet achim gam yachad.
You may be seated. We are going to be reading this morning. Actually, there are many times in which we ask you to stand or be seated or bow. This is a moment we're going to invite you to reach, and you can grab a chumash that you might have in front of you, and so that you can follow along with our Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is Kitavo, and in it we find the Bikorim, which is a mitzvah of the farmers and those who are engaged in agriculture throughout the lands of Israel to bring their first fruits, the best of their fields, to the priests in Jerusalem and provide an offering. And as they did, they also recalled and remembered their history. My father was a wandering Aramean. You might remember it from Pesach Seder. And also there is an extraordinary commandment, which is a commandment to rejoice. And it's unusual to be told that you are to rejoice, to be happy. Right? That's an unusual commandment to offer to the people. And that is something that our ancestors saw as being what they described as a type of personality that we should have, something that we should cultivate in ourselves, something called hakarat hatov, to be able to see the world and see the good. And Benjy, in the time that I've gotten to know you, you've got such a wonderful, positive attitude. I'm sure it's that positive attitude that led you to be able to do things like do the biking that you do through the woods. That's something that requires, that extraordinary balance, but also the right attitude. And also the fact that it led you to be able to learn how to play hockey at the age of 12 or 13. That's extraordinary. It's not an easy thing to do. But when you confront the challenges in your life with that positive attitude, the ability to see the good, then there's all kinds of moments that you're going to have just like this one. This moment in which you are standing before family, reading from the Torah, being connected to the generations, and making your family so proud. So never stop being able to see the good that you have around you and all the good that you can bring to each moment. For you are a gentleman, and it's a joy to share in this moment with you and your family.
For the first Aliyah to the Torah, the honor of coming up onto the bima and to stand with this wonderful gentleman, adult in the Jewish community, we call upon proud grandparents Robin Shapiro and Charles Bar. Ya'amod Rachel bat Velvo v'Yehudit Chaim Tzvi Hersh ben David.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Mvorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach
Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'haya ki tavo el haaretz asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha nachala v'yishta v'yashavta ba v'lakakta mereshit kol peri ha'adama asher tavi me'artzecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach v'samta v'atenet v'halakta el hamakom asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha l'shaken shemo sham uvata el hakohen asher yiyeh v'yamim hahem ve'amarta elav higati hayom l'Adonai Elohecha kivati el haaretz asher nishba Adonai la'avoteinu latet lanu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu.
Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
And for the next Aliyah, we call upon proud grandfather and aunt and a cousin, Sheldon Orkin, Wendy Cheney, and Michaela Cheney, Ya'amdu, Zalman Nisan, Ben Yidrova, Francis, Kaya Sahava, Bat Zalman Nisim, Susan, Mariam, Rina, Bat Shaul, Rachaya, Zahava.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai Mvorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'nasa lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'lakach הכהן התנה מידך והניחו לפני מזבח אדוני אלוהיך וענית ואמרת לפני אדוני אלוהיך ארמי עובד אבי וירד מצרימה ויגור שם במתי מעט ויהי שם לגוי גדול עצום ורב ויראו אותנו המצרים ויננו ויתנו עלינו עבודה קשה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayeh olam notah b'sarenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
And for the next Aliyah to the Torah, we call upon proud uncles Jeremy Shapiro Bar and Michael Shapiro Bar. Ya'amod Yosef ben Chaim Tzvi Hersh Berezo. Ya'amod Michael ben Chaim Tzvi Hersh Berezo.
Baruch Hu Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed.
Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Banitzak El Adonai Elohei Avotenu Vayishma Adonai Et Kolenu Vayar Et Onyenu Ve'et Amalenu Ve'et Lachatzenu Vayotzienu Adonai Mimitzrayim Beyad Chazaka Uvizroa Netuya Uvmora Gadol Uvotot Uvmoftim Vayavienu El Hamakom Hazeh Vayitin Lanu Et Haaretz Hazot Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'chayei Olam Nata B'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
And for the next Aliyah to the Torah, we call upon a great aunt and great uncle, Amy Shapiro and Dan Shapiro. Yamdu Aviva Bat Velvo v'Yehudit, Shabbatai Nachman Ben Velvo v'Yehudit.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'ata hine heveti et reshit peri hadama asher natata li Adonai v'hinachto lifnei Adonai Elohecha v'hishtachavita lifnei Adonai Elohecha. V'samachta b'chol hatov asher natan lecha Adonai Elohecha u'veitecha ata b'halevi b'hager asher b'kirbecha ki techaleh laser et kol ma'asar Tivuatecha Bashana Hashishit Shenat Hamaser V'natata Lalevi Lagir Ayatom Vila Amana ואכלו בשעריך ושבעו.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher nachat lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, Noten haTorah.
Amen.
And for the next Aliyah, we call upon proud and loving parents Tanya Shapiro Bar and Billy Orkin. Ya'amdu Elka bat Chaim Tzvi Hersh Varezel, Chaim Zev ben Zahara Nisan Bakaya.
In your binder. Okay, you'll find it. Sorry, let me get out of the way. 2, 3.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Haborach.
Baruch
Adonai habarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Haborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai, Noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'amarta lifnei Adonai Elohecha v'arti hakodesh min habayit v'gam netativ la'levi v'lager la'yatom v'la'almana kechol mitzvatcha asher tzivitani lo avarti mimitzvotecha v'lo shachachti lo achalti ve'oni mimenu v'lo viarti mimenu B'tameh v'lo natati mimenu lemet shamati b'kol Adonai Elohai asiti kechol asher tzivitani hashkifa mimeon kodshecha min hashamayim uvarech et amecha et Yisrael ve'et ha'adama asher natata lanu ka'asher nishbata la'avotenu eretz zavat chalav udvash.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, Noten haTorah.
Amen. Thank you. Wait, Benjy, wait. We gotta call you. Rabbi's gonna call you. You go on that side. Rabbi's gonna tell you. Then
Now we call upon the man of the hour. Ya'amod, Ya'amod, Ya'amod habar mitzvah. Ya'amod ben Yamin ben Chaim Zev Elka Sima. We call to the Torah to mark the occasion of his becoming a bar mitzvah, Benjamin Orkin.
Baruch Hu Adonai Habarach.
Baruch Adonai Habarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Habarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Noten haTorah.
Amen.
Hayom hazeh Adonai Elohecha mitzavecha la'asot et hachukim ha'ele v'et hamishpatim v'shamarta v'asita otam b'chol vavcha u'b'chol nafshecha. Et Adonai he'emarta hayom lihiyot lecha le'Elohim v'lalechet bidrachav ולשמור חוקיו ומצוותיו ומשפטיו ולשמוע בקולו. ואדוני האמירך היום להיות לו לעם סגולה כאשר דיבר לך ולשמור כל מצוותיו. ולתיתך עליון על כל הגויים אשר עשה לעילה ולשם ולתפארת ולהיותך עם קדוש לאדוני אלוהיך כאשר דיבר. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Up here, up here, up here. Yes.
So we now have the great privilege not only of saying, wow, what a magnificent Torah chanting you've done, with such expertise and such clarification. It was beautiful. And now we're going to lift and bind the Torah as we return it to the ark eventually. So we call upon the Hagba and Galila, Shel Orkin, and Jesse and Ellie Orkin, if you would have the honor of lifting and dressing the Torah as we ask the congregation to rise. Ya'amod ha'magbiya v'hagolalim.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם אמן. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם אמן. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם אמן. לי 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 לי
You may be seated, and now Benji is going to read the English translation of his Torah portion.
When you enter the land that the Eternal your God is giving you as a heritage, and you possess it and settle in it, you shall take some of every first fruit of the soil, which you harvest from the land that the Eternal your God is giving you. Put it in a basket and go to the place where the Eternal your God will choose to establish the divine name. You shall go to the priest in charge at that time and say to him, I acknowledge this day before the Eternal your God that I have entered the land that the Eternal swore to our fathers to assign us. The priest shall take the basket from your hand and set it down in front of the altar of the Eternal your God. You shall then recite as follows before the Eternal your God. My father was a fugitive Aramean. He went down to Egypt with meager numbers and sojourned there. But there he became a great and very populous nation. The Egyptians dealt harshly with us and oppressed us. They imposed heavy labor on us. We cried to the Eternal, the God of our ancestors, and the Eternal heard our plea and saw our plight, our misery, and our oppression. The Eternal freed us from Egypt by a mighty hand, by an outstretched arm and awesome power. and by signs and portents, bringing us to this place and giving us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Wherefore I now bring the first fruits of the soil, which you, Eternal One, have given me. You shall leave it before the Eternal your God, and bow low before the Eternal your God. And you shall enjoy together the family of the Levite and the stranger in your midst, all the bounty that the Eternal your God has bestowed upon you and your household. When you have set aside in full the 10th part of your yield, in the 3rd year, the year of the tithe, and have given it to the family of the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, that they may eat their fill in your settlements. You shall declare before the Eternal your God, I have cleared out the consecrated portion from the house, and I have given it to the family of the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, just as you commanded me. I have neither transgressed nor neglected any of your commandments. I have not eaten of it while in mourning. I have not cleared out any of it while I was impure, and I have not deposited any of it with the dead. I have obeyed the Eternal my God. I have done just as you commanded me. Look down from your holy abode from heaven, and bless your people Israel, and the soil you have given us, a land flowing with milk and honey, as you swore to our fathers. The Eternal your God commands you this day to observe these laws and rules. Observe them faithfully with all your heart and soul. You have affirmed this day that the Eternal is your God, in whose ways you will walk, whose laws and commandments and rules you will observe, and whom you will obey. And the Eternal has affirmed this day that you are, as promised, God's treasured people who shall observe all the divine commandments, and that God will set you in fame and renowned glory high above all the nations that God has made, and that you shall be, as promised, a holy people to the Eternal your God.
We are now going to turn to a second biblical reading that we do on Shabbat known as the Haftorah. And the Haftorah comes from a section of the Tanakh known as the Prophets. And Benjy in particular is going to be reading from Isaiah chapter 60, which can be found on page 874. That's page 874 in your Chumash. And the prophets were not foretellers predicting some future, rather they were forthtellers. With their words and with their actions, they spoke to creating a society that was more just, more kind, more merciful, particularly to those who are vulnerable in our society. And it's meaningful that Benjy is going to be reading these sacred words, particularly during the month of Elul, as he reads one of the Haftorot of comfort leading up to the days of awe.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nbiim tovim v'ratzah v'divrehem hane'emarim be'emet Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'Moshe abdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'nbiei ha'emet b'tzedek. Kumi ori kiva orech ukvod Adonai alayich zarach ki hineicha choshech yichase eretz va'arafel le'umim ve'alayich yizrach Adonai ukvodo alayich ye'ira'eh V'chachu goyim le'orech u'mlachim le'noga zarcheich se'i saviv einayich ori kulam nikbetzu va'ulach ba'anayich merachok yavou uvnotayich al tzad te'amana Az tir'i v'nahart ufachad v'rachav levavech ki yehafech alayich hamon yam chel goyim yavou lach שפעת גמלים תכסך בקרי מדיין ואיפה כולם משבה יבואו זהב ובונה יזעו ותהילות אדוני יבשרו כל צאן קדר יקבצו לך אלי נוויות ישרתונך יעלו על רצון מזבחי ובית תפארתי אפאר ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם צור כל העמים צדיק בכל הדורות האל הנאמן האומר ועושה המדבר ומקיים שכל דבריו אמת בצדק על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה לכבוד ולתפארת על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת
Yesher koach, Benji. Take a deep breath. You deserved it. You deserve it. You've earned it. I can think of no more significant and meaningful haftorah for you to be chanting than this one from Isaiah, where it says, Kumi ori kiva orech ukavod Adonai aleich zerach. Arise, shine, for the light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. I don't know if you woke up early enough to see the sunrise this morning, or if any of you had the opportunity to see the sunrise this morning, but if you missed it, you have the opportunity of seeing a light arise this morning in Benjy. And the text goes on to talk about, though darkness may cover the earth, and certainly when we look out at the world, sometimes we can see that there is difficulties beyond the windows of our sanctuary, beyond the homes of our families. But when we have young people who commit themselves to acts of graciousness and goodness like you have, and when we have young people who are being the next link, beautiful link in a chain of tradition that's being passed to you, then we know that no matter what happens in the world, that we have young people that can be a rising light within our community. It can give us a sense of hope, a sense of purpose, and a sense of knowledge that things will be okay, so long as we have people that are out there in the world like you, Benjy, who are making it better. So never stop being that light. Never stop lifting yourself up to moments such as these and being able to approach it with a good sense of knowing that you can tackle whatever comes your way. It's a joy to be in this moment with you and your dear family. And now it's also a joy as we return the Sefer Torah to the Ark. It's a joy to call upon your brother and sister. So Jesse and Ellie, if you come up once again, as we are going to return the Sefer Torah to the Ark, we rise now as we turn to page 256. 256. Behold, a good doctrine has been given unto you, my Torah, forsake it not, for it is the tree of life to those who cling to it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace.
Eitz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomecheha meushar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh עמנו כקדם.
You may be seated. And now Benjy has prepared these words on the occasion of his becoming a bar mitzvah.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to Congregation Shalom and my bar mitzvah. My portion is Ki Tavo from the book of Deuteronomy. My Torah portion occurs right after God had saved the Jewish people from slavery from the Egyptians. In return, God asked the Israelites to follow some commandments in order to ensure that good continues to spread throughout the world. My Torah portion is about those commandments that God gave the Jewish people so many years ago. They aren't the famous 10 commandments, but other ones are still very important to our world today. When I first read my Torah portion, I was asked to come up with 3 themes. And it turns out that all that Hebrew I just read, that may have sounded like complicated gibberish to a lot of you, is actually about sacrifice, helping the needy, and obeying commandments. However, in this speech, I will focus on helping the needy, because in my Torah portion, giving to the needy is introduced for one of the first times. When many people think about helping people, they think about the Hebrew word tzedakah. But what is tzedakah really? Where did it come from? Tzedakah comes from the Hebrew root word tzedek. Tzedek means righteousness and justice. Therefore, tzedakah is often thought of as a good deed. However, many people don't realize that tzedakah is actually a commandment of God's. Tzedakah is one of the commandments given in my Torah portion. Thousands of years ago, God told the Jewish people that they should donate 1/10 of their harvest to the Levite, the stranger, the orphan, and the widow. I believe God chose these people because they are all in need. Helping people in need creates a fairer society. The Jewish people then did as they were told, and tzedakah was created. However, since then, times have changed. Many people aren't farmers anymore, and they don't have harvests. So what else can we donate? To me, that is the beauty of helping people. There are so many ways to do it, and anybody can do it anytime. You can donate money, but that is only one way. You could also hold the door for someone who is in a wheelchair, snowblow your neighbor's driveway, or even plant a tree. No matter which way you help, good is spread throughout the world. Although, believe it or not, I am not the first person to come up with the idea of helping the needy. Today, there are lots of groups of people dedicated to helping people in need. For example, the Jewish National Fund. The Jewish National Fund is an organization founded by Theodore Herzl in 1901. The Jewish National Fund allows you to plant a tree in Israel or help build a park from inside your house. All you have to do is donate. And when everybody plays a small part, big things can happen. Since 1901, the Jewish National Fund has planted over 250 million trees, built over 250 reservoirs and dams, developed over 250,000 acres of land, created more than 2,000 parks, and provided the infrastructure for over 1,000 communities. Furthermore, when I first started writing this speech, I started coming up with things everybody needs. And it occurred to me that although nearly everybody takes them for granted, trees are one of the most important things on earth. Trees are the ultimate tzedakah because they help in so many ways. Trees provide shade for the hot, provide a home for the shelterless, provide oxygen for everyone, and provide hours and hours of fun for climbing and swinging around on. But why do I care? Why would anybody have any interest at all in trees? The answer is fun. Although many people don't realize it, trees provide lots and lots of fun. For example, mountain biking, which has been my favorite activity since I was 6 years old. In your mind, imagine going 20 miles an hour on a bike. Now imagine you're in a forest zooming through the trees. That is mountain biking. It not only gives me a thrill, but it also gives 40 million Americans a thrill every year. That is a lot of people. However, without trees, mountain biking wouldn't be the same. However, mountain biking wouldn't be the only hobby ruined if there were no trees. Without trees, no hockey sticks, no frisbee golf, no s'mores from fireplaces, and no books. That would be a lot of spoiled fun if it weren't for trees. So it is very important to keep planting them, because when everybody plays their part, big things can happen. In addition to this, as more and more carbon dioxide is being released into the air, we need more and more trees to produce oxygen. However, the opposite is happening. Over 41 million trees are being cut down every day. Therefore, for my mitzvah project, I planted a tree. And I hope many people, both in this room and outside of it, will follow my example, and despite the size or shape, continue to donate tzedakah, so the world can be a better place. Because when everybody does their part, big things can happen. Thank yous. I want to start off by thanking the rabbis and the cantors, both in Minnesota and Wisconsin. I look up to all four of them, but I would really like to give a special thank you to Rabbi Shapiro, who was the rabbi at my mom's bat mitzvah, my parents' wedding, and my sister's naming ceremony. My parents still rave about how great of a rabbi he is today, and I'm honored that he came out of retirement to be the rabbi at my bar mitzvah. I also want to give a giant thank you to my fantastic tutor, Heidi. Heidi not only helped me with all my Hebrew, but also made it kind of fun. Because when I first started learning Hebrew, I thought it was pointless because of all the hard work I have to put in. I had no motivation, but Heidi gave me that motivation. Suddenly I saw Hebrew not as a giant homework assignment, but a challenge. And that's what inspired me to keep working. I couldn't have done it without Heidi. However, Heidi is just one of the amazing people I would like to thank today. I'd also like to thank my mom and my grandparents for making this all happen. They spent hours and hours stressing and working on my bar mitzvah. They are the hardest workers in the world and are true heroes. However, I also want to thank the rest of my family for always being there for me when I need it. Whether that means being the hardest worker I've ever seen and the most loving mom ever, always being able to make everybody laugh and make the most boring things very fun, and simply just being the kind of dad who makes life a joy, or being the kind of sister who always wants to play with her siblings, no matter what the game is, as long as she gets to be with her brother, she's happy. And that is an incredible trait to have when you're 7 years old. But it is extremely vital to thank my incredible brother, who not only puts up with my silliness, but adds to it. He makes everything in life amazing. He is always there when I want to play a game, when I'm trying something new, and even when I'm trying to fall asleep at night. He's the best brother I could ever ask for, and I'm the luckiest person in the world to be a part of this family. Lastly, I want to give a special thank you to everyone in this room, because you not only shared the day with me, but a lot of the people in this room had to drive a long time to be with me today, especially the Halderson family and the Adams family, who drove over 6 hours, and that means a lot. Thank you for your time. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Now it's a joy to call upon Tanya and Billy, who are going to speak loving words to Benjy.
Come on over here. You should stand in the middle.
Benjy, I am so incredibly proud of you, not only for the amazing job you've done in becoming a bar mitzvah today, but for the truly wonderful person you are each and every day. When you first started studying for your bar mitzvah, you weren't exactly thrilled about it. It was hard. You had to spend a lot of time studying in addition to your regular schoolwork, and it took time away from sports, friends, and having fun. But you quickly came to embrace your study of the Torah and Haftorah, and you applied the same determination, intelligence, strength, thoughtfulness, and dedication that I've seen you show in so many aspects of your life. For example, when you were learning to walk, you took your first steps while you were holding a giant ball about 5 times the size of your head out in front of you, which was actually pretty smart because it probably helped you balance. When you were learning to talk, you would only say about 4 to 5 words. In fact, to be qualified for speech therapy when you were 2, until one day you just started speaking perfect English in complete sentences. Of course, you have excelled in so many sports: soccer, basketball, hockey, mountain biking, tennis, and swimming, to name a few. Not only because of your natural athleticism, but because of your dedication and determination to practice to become the best you can be. In school, too, you have been a star student in all of your courses, despite having to do distance learning during COVID and making the difficult transition to middle school and 6th grade. You hold yourself to such high standards, and your all-A report cards every year prove it. And in addition to all this, Benjy, I am perhaps most in awe of you in your role as an older brother to Jesse and Ellie. It gives Daddy and I such joy to see the true love, friendship, and closeness the 3 of you have and will have for life. And a lot of this is because of who you are and the example you set as the eldest. So because of all this, it was no surprise to me that you worked so hard to reach this special milestone, your bar mitzvah today. And over the past several months, I've realized that your decision to plant a tree as your bar mitzvah project, which I'll admit I was a bit skeptical of at first, is really so very meaningful. As you said in your speech, trees are incredibly important to people because they give us so much: shade, shelter, oxygen to breathe, fruit to eat, beauty. This made me think of Shel Silverstein's book, The Giving Tree. Whenever I think about this book, a very vivid memory comes to mind. I remember reading this book with Nana at the kitchen table in her house as we looked out over the lake, and I remember an incredible feeling of love and of being loved. Although I didn't realize it at the time, for me, Nan personifies the giving tree. I have so many wonderful childhood memories of the times we spent together, and we are all truly blessed to have Nana and Papa here to celebrate with us today. This feeling of love, though, extends to and through our entire family, which may be why so many people refer to a family tree or a tree of life, as we see in the beautiful stained glass behind us. Another reason your bar mitzvah project is so meaningful. Just like a big, beautiful tree, our entire family and community has strong roots, many branches, and will always be a source of support, nourishment, and unconditional love for you, Benjy. I hope you know and feel this always. And today, as you start to become a new branch of your own, I could not be prouder. I love you.
Amen.
All right, Benjy, you can go with your mom and dad and grab a seat in the front row. And Tanya and Billy, I'm going to ask you to remain standing. And now, Benjy, you can stand with them. And Jesse and Ellie, you can rise as well, and grandparents and aunts and uncles and great aunts and uncles and great grandparents. If you are able, we invite you to rise as well. And cousins and family and friends, if you would join them, and all of the community that is here as we recite the words that have been on the lips of parents for generations in moments such as these, the Shehechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyemanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Blessed are you, eternal our God, ruler of the universe, who has given us life, who has sustained us, and who has brought us to this very special moment today. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated.
Well, Benjy, this was an extraordinary day, and we appreciate the beauty of your reading, of your thoughtfulness. This is one of the great bar mitzvahs that we can ever think of. Beautiful family and just terrific job you did. Proud of you. Even when we were talking on the phone earlier a few weeks ago, I thought, this is a bright and thoughtful and fine gentleman. So we're proud of you. And we thank you so much for making this day memorable. We'll always remember how magnificently you read, you offered wisdom, you chanted, and your beautiful family who love you so. You can feel it. It's right here, those beautiful feelings of love that you receive. I'm only going to say a short word about something that I thought was really important, which you spoke about even some time ago on the phone, and that was Jewish National Fund. And the need for the Jewish people following World War II to create a state. And Harry Truman, who was President of the United States, realized how important it was. One of his best friends, with whom he worked in Kansas City, came to visit Truman in the White House. And he started to cry across the desk from the President of the United States. Now, they had been friends and partners in business before Truman actually became the President of the United States. And the war had just concluded. And he said to the President of the United States, my people, my Jewish people, have been decimated. In fact, 6 million Jews were slaughtered in World War II just because they were Jews. And he started to cry in front of the President. And Truman said, what are you crying about? He said, for the same reason I just told you, that these were dear and precious people. And we think that there may be as many as 6 million Jews who perished during the Holocaust. And there needs to be a place to go for Jews to be able to find safe haven. What's going to happen? What's going to happen to all those European Jews who don't have parents, who don't have brothers or sisters, who don't have cousins anymore? And it really hit Truman. And he said, you know, you're right. And one of the first things that we must do, and what I want to do, he said, as President of the United States of America, is to sign a document being the first country to declare that there should be a Jewish state. That there should be a place where Jews could go when anti-Semitism causes such pain for so many people. And that's true of all people, no matter what countries in which they live. And that moved him. And he organized a meeting of the Jewish National Fund. And they all came to a meeting. And he handed to each of them a beautiful pen from the President of the United States saying, America will always support you. Non-Jews and Jews listened to what Truman had said, and there became a state declared, and Jews for the first time in thousands of years would have a place to go in order to find safe haven. And one of the first things they did even before the state was established was to plant trees. Just like so many of you have spoken today, how important it is. Because if you plant trees, and if you have principle, and if you believe in doing that which is noble, then the roots of what you stand for will always be strong. And that's what Israel had done. We can go all the way back to World War I. When World War I started and anti-Semitism evolved then too, a group of Jews decided that they were to go to what was then often called Palestine, which would become Israel. And they left Russia. It's one of my favorite stories that I've ever read. They left Russia by walking out of the country, and they eventually would make their way to what would eventually be Palestine and Israel. And they came to the Russian border, a group of about 50 Jews with a man who was about 85 years old who was their leader. And they walked to the border, and there was a high, broad house up on the top of this ladder. And they were trying just to walk across the border in order to make their way to Israel, when an officer of the Russian army called down from the box, "Who are you, and where are you going?" And the 80-some-year-old man looked up and said, "We're Greeks, and we're going to our homeland, Greece." And the colonel got down, he walked down the ladder, and he said to him, "Where did you say you're from?" And the man said, "Greece, I just told you, Greece, we're going back to Greece." And he looked into his eyes, and he put his face right to the old man's face, and he said to him, "Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem. Good luck on your trip to the Holy Land. Shalom Aleichem." Nobody heard except for the man. And he turned around and he said to the other officers, "These people are Greek. Let them pass." And this type of walking to the land was exciting because it was that group that began to cultivate the land of Israel. It was desert. But through Jewish National Fund, they created a state that sprouted. I don't mean only trees. People of wisdom who believed in the integrity of life. And someone who had said so many years ago, Joshua said, "The older I get, the more I appreciate caring people." And this is a people who cares. And you know something? Benjy, you're a person who cares. You could feel it. You've got a deepness to you. You're bright and you're good. And yeah, I see that in your entire family. And people like you are the people that will continue to grow. Allow people to grow. Allow people to sprout. When you give someone a hug, it's like a tree, a leaf unfolds. And that's what you have done for us today. And that is what we see in your family. We're very proud of you. And it is a great honor to call you up onto the bima once again so that Rabbi Noah and I will have opportunity to bless you.
May God bless you and keep you. God's countenance shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And God's face turn upon you and give you a lifetime filled with good health and happiness, joy and love and peace. Amen. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
And Mazel Tov. We are now going to turn to the concluding sections of our service as we turn to Aleinu. It's a joy now to call upon Jesse and Ellie once again to come up to the bima as you have the honor of opening up and closing our ark. And we are going to rise as we turn to page 282. That's page 282 in our Siddur.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד, ושמו אחד. We remain standing now as we think of those who have passed into life eternal in recent days and those who have passed in seasons gone by. In particular, we are thinking of these dear members of our community for whom we mark the period of Shiva. We think of Henry Rinsky and Elaine Stoley. In addition to those names, too, we commemorate the period of Shloshim, the 30-day mourning period. We think of Linda Hirsch, Wendy Huber, Lona Ross, Joan Saperstein, David Weber, and Ren Gollin. In addition to those names, so too do we think of dear members of your family, Benjy, who are still smiling down upon you and your family with the same love and affection as they did in life. We think of Irma and David Barr, and we think of Susan Orkin. In addition to those names, too, so too do we think of all those who died due to war or terrorism, all those who died in defense of this nation and allied nations' ideals. We think of all those who died due to this terrible virus of racism and xenophobia that has stricken our nation and our globe. And we think of all those who perished during the Holocaust. Our griefs and sympathies are mingled as we turn to page 294 for Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. We recite these sacred words together. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shmei Rabbah, V'alma divrach chirutei v'amlich malchutei, V'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'gala uvizman kariv v'yamru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mivorach le'olam u'lomei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechemata. Jamiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say amen. You may be seated. Now, Benjy, I have the privilege and the pleasure of bestowing some gifts upon you, gifts of our congregation. So come on up here and you can receive those gifts. Well, the first gift that we have given to you is the gift of this certificate of becoming a bar mitzvah. And you have been an extraordinary bar mitzvah. It's signed by Rabbi Shapiro and myself and Cantor Perper, and I hope that it is a wonderful memory of this moment and the moments in preparation for this moment as well. Rabbi Shapiro talked about the importance of trees, as did you, and it's also important for us to look to our roots and to understand them. And you have wonderful roots here in Milwaukee, which is why it's important to give you this book, One People, Many Paths, A History of Jewish Milwaukee by John Gerda. It's a gift on behalf of the Jewish Museum of Milwaukee as well as our congregation. So hopefully it is something that you will treasure and you will read about the history of your family in this place. We also have the gift of these two vessels, in a sense. Both of them, when you fill them up, it fills you up. And the first is a tzedakah box. And just as you spoke about in your speech, tzedakah is an essential element of life. It's something that is so important. And there's a saying in our tradition, just as my ancestors planted for me, I'm speaking about trees and what comes from those trees, so too shall I plant for my children. And we have a commitment to making sure that the world is a better place for each generation. And I know that with the values that you hold dear and that your family hold dear, that you will continue to plant for the generations to come. We also have the gift of this Kiddush cup. And Kiddush cup is something that we use in all sacred moments. And when we think about wine, what makes it strong and powerful, what turns it from grapes to wine is time. You've put a tremendous amount of effort and time into this moment, and it's a moment of fruition where we all get to be overjoyed at all of the goodness that you bring. All of those moments along the way, they're going to require time and effort, but I know that you'll be able to celebrate moments such as these, many moments in the years to come. So may you always remember this moment as you fill this Kiddush cup with wine and the celebrations to come. And now I'm going to invite you to stand over at those S tables, and your mom and dad can join you. Oh, there you are, Billy. I didn't see you. So come on over if you'd like to stand together. And Jesse and Ellie, you can join them as well. And we are now going to rise as we turn to our concluding hymn for this Shabbat, which is Cantor.
Semen tov u'mazel tov the semen tov, semen tov u'mazel tov the semen tov, semen tov u'mazel tov the semen tov, Yehelanu, 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 Olechol Yisrael, Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Olechol Yisrael. Semen tov u'mazel tov the semen tov, semen tov u'mazel tov the semen tov, semen tov u'mazel tov the semen tov, Yehelanu.
And now, Benjy, if you would lift the Kiddush cup, we will recite a timeless blessing, the blessing over the wine.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
L'chaim. And now, Benjy, if you would take the cover off the challah is a symbol of community, it's a symbol of family. Just as we draw sustenance from the bread, so too do we draw sustenance from each other. and our lives are intertwined with one another, which is why the symbol of the challah is braided. We lift up the challah now as we recite the blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
B'te'avon and Mazel Tov, everyone.
Mazel tov.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Heidi.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please join Benjy and family in Clearfield Hall, just through those doors. And to your right, you'll see it's a large hall there, which is waiting for you to enjoy a Kiddush lunch. Shabbat Shalom. It's a joy to celebrate these moments.